this actually was the movie that inspired me to cook because I always thought, wow, if you could express yourself through food, how amazing is that? Because the writers express themselves through writing, filmmakers express themselves through visual images and sound, but expressing themselves through food was just another level of giving, and I like to give. And I just, that movie inspired me to do cooking for people. It was just, I enjoyed it.
Gdayall, and welcome to episode 87, Food in Movies. Now, you may have noticed, everyone's noticed, Phil, my partner in crime, has not been here for the last few shows. He had some business in the States, came back, and then unfortunately, he had a family member that was unwell. So he had to go back for that as well. And so we will talk to him next week, hopefully, or the week after. So we all are thinking of him and we miss him, but he's easily replaced. I've got another New Yorker here.
Oh, I terribly miss Phil.
I miss Phil very much. And you know what? When he did come back, God bless him, there was Excedrin migraine on my desk. He knows.
Oh my
He's
goodness.
so sweet. That is. Some people bring back, I don't know, presents, shoes, bags. Etc. Migraine is the way to my heart.
Well, you guys are a good team for sure. So
now, we are going to be talking about movies, animation. We're going to go through some different scenes of some movies that are famous with the food, and a few docos in there as well. Neither one of us has seen everything on this list, so we are just going to have a nice free-flowing conversation today. Dave Turpin is with us again. You were here on the phone. You phoned in, I think it was, episode 9.
We had a phone call, yes.
Talking about some Thanksgiving fantastic stuff. We were talking about your Thanksgiving turkey. We compared notes with that.
Oh, it's terrible fun. I really enjoyed it. You guys just led me through a wonderful Thanksgiving journey.
It was very good. Now, we'll talk a little bit through. This show is going to have so much in it that we're going to do another show.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I'm going to just drip feed a few facts about Dave. We might do a quiz later for the general public. So now, number one fun fact, you're a Buffalo Bills fan.
Oh, this is not just a fun fact. This is a fact of life. I was born in Buffalo, New York.
Right.
You do not get a choice. There is no such thing as people who hate sports. Or I was a punk rocker, anti-everything. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan to my death, and my son and any kids I have are Buffalo Bills fans. It's just how it is.
Right?
Yeah. Did Clever Thomas ever find his helmet?
Yes. Yes, he did. He's a wonderful man.
Goes a long way back for football fans.
It does, yeah.
Now, Dave is also a fantastic bowler. Not cricket, but good old 10-pin bowling.
10-pin bowling, which we don't call that in the States. We just call it bowling.
That's right, because we all know what it is.
Right. We don't have the other bowling greens, except for as, what would they call it? Like recreational.
Yeah.
Like there might be an Italian bocce ball or English lawn bowling. Or
you don't do lawn bowls?
No.
That's a weird thing you guys do with the hats and the little white dresses and outfits.
I wonder if they have the brunches like they do when they play cricket here, and they have this amazing barbecue in the middle of it. That's just amazing. Oh, wow. I want to play cricket just for that.
A game so long that you have to have a real meal break.
Yeah.
And they used to have a smoke and a beer as well in the old days.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's your best score?
Oh, I've had a 300. I have 10 of them.
Do you get a pin or a plaque or something?
You get a ring normally.
Nice.
Unfortunately, when I had all my 10 300s,
yeah,
they were on. Oh, so you get a ring when you do it competitively and you're bowling with other teams.
Right.
Well, I had most of my 300s always came when we were doing a pre-bowl, or we wouldn't be bowling with the league. And even though you would pre-bowl, you do it with the other team.
Right.
But it wasn't on the same day. So you get the score, but not the ring.
Oh,
when you have family and stuff like that, sometimes you had to, if someone would be sick, you'd have to schedule another day.
Yeah.
So they all counted. You can't take it.
Yeah.
Take it away, but
it's a real 300.
I don't have the ring, and I haven't had one of this. I had a practice one in Australia, which would be my 11th, but you have to have sanctioned 300s to be a 300. I have sanctioned 300s. I just don't have the hardware. which is sad.
Do you know, my parents met at Tracy Ball,
Oh, wow.
my hometown, because I don't know how it was in Buffalo, but like Northern California, small town.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy had sort of a restaurant in the bowling alley. So the bowling alley had a bar and a restaurant. So you would go there to eat, not necessarily to bowl. So it was sort of like an entertainment center, but
Yeah,
not
I
the
think
casino.
that's...
So my mom and my grandmother used to go there to eat on a certain night. Can't think of what it was. My dad, who was a police officer, one of his friends, who was also a police officer, said there's this hot blonde that has dinner with her mother every Thursday night. I'm going to ask her out. So Dad got there first and cut his lunch for him. And there you go. Here I am.
Oh, beautiful.
I actually went to school with his kids, and I'm glad Mom picked the one she did. She might not be, because that didn't stay forever. But so bowling is close to my heart. I'm terrible at it. I wish I was good. Brendan's quite good. Makes me feel like an idiot anytime I go play. Not on purpose. That's me.
He seems pretty athletic, though. So.
Yeah, he's got the whole para move. I shuffle up. And to get into cooking, you won a contest. Please tell us about this. Is a food contest. I want to hear all about it.
Oh, it was, first of all, I've mentioned before, it's very, when you enter a contest and you put yourself out there, it's very personal, and it's like you're taking a little risk. I don't know if you've ever performed on stage, or like I have, and it's, you practice and you do things. Well, when you put a food item out there, there's no feedback, right? So until you win or you lose. And I decided, well, my wife made me enter my barbecue sauce that I made about 10 years ago. I've been making this sauce for a while, and I made this sauce for her. I said, well, what would you make a barbecue sauce about, right? And I said, well, I'll make a barbecue base so that you could take this sauce and mix it with anything and come out with a great barbecue sauce. So it could be made, you take my sauce and you could put like citrus in it and have a citrus sauce. Or you can go on the other side and go for like heat and like an alcohol, like a Jack Daniels and habaneros.
Yep.
And you have a great heat sauce. But you have to start with a base, because you don't want to just keep remaking everything. I mean, some people do.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll make you a sauce, but the base is delicious. And so I put it in the bottle, and it was a plus and a minus. We were hoping to enter Red Hill because it's a small competition, but turns out it's not. Turns out all the foodies in like Melbourne and all these professional chefs enter this thing. And so instead of being like my barbecue sauce being put in with the 4 like fig jam or strawberry jam 3 bottles, I was against like 300 bottles of sauce from these people. And when I checked, I won. So that was nice.
That is so awesome.
And until I talked to an actual foodie, I didn't know this was the competition for all the local chefs that own these restaurants. That's their thing.
And down there is becoming a big barbecue area, because
it?
I get advertisements sort of up here about different barbecue places down sort of Mornington Way and past. So.
Oh, wow. I just know that there's lots of like interesting boutique restaurants all around there, and we have wine country in Melbourne as well. So people want that little Red Hill stamp, and I went in not knowing that. I came out after winning, finding out this, so that was pretty nice. But it still is scary. You put your sauce in there, like, oh, I hope I get something, because my wife goes and she wins the quilting shows all the time. Yes. And if she doesn't, Susan, it's one of the other top quilters in Melbourne winning it, and they all know each other in these circles. So maybe if I get lucky, I'll meet all the foodies and they'll come check out my restaurant. I would love that.
That would be so good. That'd be worth the win.
It'd be worth the win, right?
So that is fantastic. We
might
have
to.
Thank
you for asking about that.
Oh,
that's
no,
nice.
I think that's amazing. I love things like that. And that's how Meet Mitch, who's one of our barbecue sauces, he started
in Kansas City, right?
Yeah, and he just he worked for, was it Titleist? Well, who did? Yeah, a golf company, right? And he made the sauce, and his friend said, oh, just put it in. And then he was leaving, and they went, dude, come back. You won.
I remember hearing that podcast. It was good. Didn't he have like a restaurant in France too?
Yes.
Like they put together a barbecue. Oh, what an interesting story he has. I wish him well with all that stuff.
And so, see, you never know.
Yeah.
What's going to happen. I wouldn't mind tasting the sauce sometime, just saying.
Yeah, well, he does Kansas City barbecue too, though. He said
Yes.
his was sweet and savory with a touch of heat.
Yes, that's
Mine
right.
has no heat.
Well, see, that's perfect for me.
He missed that.
What?
Your little hint about trying it.
No, I think he got it. He just ignored it.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm used to you doing that, so it's okay. I would love to try it one day if you ever have
think
any
you've had it.
spare. I might have.
I think you both have had it before. I only make it once in a great while. But if you had turkey, if we did turkey stuff, I probably did just the turkey.
We had turkey stuff
Yeah,
that
so-
day. Hmm.
It only comes out once a year. It's a big process to make this barbecue sauce. It's like 4 hours.
Oh, I want to hear more about it, but we're not doing it on the air because it's a secret. It's trade secret now. So now that we've got a bit of, and sorry, I will say one more thing, which we'll talk about later. Dave has a lot of experience in the movie industry and the entertainment industry, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at another point. So he might have some different takes on some of these movies as well. And I will be back after the break. And we're back. Now, David, next time you're going to have to say that because that's usually Phil's job.
Oh, okay.
So we're doing Phil impersonations usually, but we'll ease into that after the next break that we have. So we're going to talk about some movies, and we were just speaking in the break about, sort of what the theme was, because it's not just movies about food. There's movies where there's important scenes with food in it and that sort of thing. So I think this is sort of a Gen X subject as well, because all of these things I watched when we got HBO, or I spent a lot of time on my own sort of watching movies and loving cooking and all that sort of thing, where I wasn't kicked outside to play because my mom was at work. So it was stay at home and don't answer the door.
Oh, wow.
That's a bit of it.
Very similar for me. Like I did go outside and play, but I was a night owl my whole life. So I would stay up with the HBO and watch all the repeats. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw Grease.
Oh, yes.
It was like one of the always on. Then you'd see a movie like something else, but
Yeah, so we probably watched movies. Well, there's some movies we probably shouldn't have watched. I'm just saying. But there were movies that we watched because it was on. So it might have been put to our audience, but it was there. And I think we got a wider exposure. So for me, I love food. So this was not a bad topic for me, but Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So 1971, not Johnny Depp's version. This is Gene Wilder as the friendly candy factory owner. Everything in this movie involved food, from not being able to have a lot of food when the family's all tucked up in bed and having to get the Charlie's lucky to
Right.
yeah.
Yes, they were this is one of my favorite movies of all time. by the
Yeah,
way.
well, tell me how it moves through with the food too. I have to do my I want a pony, Daddy, and I want it now later on there.
Well, that was like that social commentary they did with everything relating food.
Mhm.
But I think every of the characters had a different food impact. Like you mentioned that Charlie, the main character,
Yeah.
and his family, they were poor.
Yep.
So I don't even remember if they had a dinner time once where they had like no soup and no food. So when he won the factory, he was getting a whole lifestyle change.
Yep.
But then we had like Augustus Gloop, whose father was a sausage maker, if that's right.
Yes.
And another, I don't remember remember the girl who sorted the candy bars? Her parents did that. Was that
That was
Veruca?
Veruca
was it the other
Salt, and there was
girls?
Violet Beauregard. Violet's turning Violet.
But I wonder if I can't remember what her parents did, but one had a factory.
Yes,
So
that
was it
was
the
that
food
was
factory?
Veruca's family. I'm not sure.
I know they sorted the candy bars, but was that their
I
theme as
dunno.
well? I don't know. There's a lot of food in that movie, and Willy Wonka was, of course, chocolate maker, right?
Yes, and he had everything was edible, including the chocolate river.
Oh,
That
how amazing was that? And
actually, Heston Blumenthal. Did you see his special?
the raspberries taste like raspberries, and the snozberries taste like snozberries.
That's
That was just,
right. It was fantastic. So now that has the dream childhood. I imagine waking up. Sort of my dream now would be wake up and locked into Costco, and I could check out everything there. But as a child, I wouldn't have minded being in the Willy Wonka's factory.
Can I just point out one interesting part of that movie for us that we may have had, but
Yes.
the kids don't have anymore?
Tell me.
In the movie, the kids all run after school to the candy store, and it starts off with that whole thing.
Yes.
Who can make the sun rise with the Candyman, right?
Yep.
But they're all buying little pennies or 5 cent or pence candies and getting a bag and taking them home on their walk home. And I did this after school. I don't think that we have that in the culture anymore. They
No.
had milk bars here. I don't know if that was the same thing.
Well, they did have penny candy. We actually had a show with Anna a few weeks ago because she's from the country. So she would go after school and we're talking the corner shop versus the milk bar and a similar thing. And but now it's sort of like we had Kaylee who works with us from the South. She would go to like the quick stop. So like the petrol station.
Right.
So there's no more penny candy anymore. It was a slushie and,
Right.
something
The
else.
7-Eleven.
But I think a lot of kids aren't allowed to go home by themselves anymore either. So you kind of don't run to the store like you used to.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
We went after dentist appointments at my house. That was the thing. Now, I think this is actually this movie, which we've talked, which might come back to your memory. 1978, Jacqueline Bisset was very beautiful and hot at that time. That was one of her moments. Who's Killing the Great Chefs of Europe? Now, Mom loved this. It was on HBO, so we saw it a lot. And I think this is what gave me my love of cooking and food. I'm pretty sure this was the start of it. So do you remember anything about it, David?
I have some flashes when you said that they were dying by their favorite meals, and you said that somebody's favorite meal is duck l'orange, and they were killed by a press.
Yes.
And I'm like, I know I saw all the Jacqueline Bisset movies because she was
Jacqueline Bisset. So the deep class, all those, yes.
And I do remember some of it, but not enough to really contribute unless I can remember that scene. I do remember this a little bit.
Well, two things that
Tell me more about it.
So
please.
it was funny. So it was like a dark comedy. George Segal was in it as well, which she was always very dashing to me. But the Great Chefs of Europe made this meal. I think it might have been for the Prime Minister or the Queen. That bit I can't remember. So every chef made a course. Jacqueline Bisset, she was the pastry chef. So she was at the end. So all of a sudden, these great chefs of Europe start dying or murdered, but murdered in the same way their main dishes were cooked. So they worked that out, and they're being murdered in the order of the dinner. So she knows she's last. So she made, I have been very, like Bake Alaska or the Bomb Alaska. I have always wanted to have that just because of this movie.
Oh, wow.
So that was part of it. And I learned how to separate an egg in this movie because she did it in her hand.
I can remember that.
Yeah, see? It comes back.
It does.
It does. But it was like in the day of like Burt Reynolds movies, those we're talking about Dom DeLuise. It's just those funny movies that we probably couldn't get away with some of it now.
Well, even in the 70s, we had like Monty Python, and they had food references to their stuff. So it reminds me a little bit of that kind of ilk.
We might be talking about that in a little bit. Did you ever see Babette's Feast?
Yes, I have. Absolutely. I cannot. You have to tell me more about it to engage my memories, but I have seen that's Feast.
So
it was, and a bunch of other. I always did the artistic movies.
That came out like the same year as Betty Blue and a few other French movies.
The Wife, the Wardrobe, Lover thing.
Yep. The Cook, the Wife, the Thief.
The Cook, Wife.
Yep.
So I saw pretty much all of those movies. I can't wait to hear about it.
It was a good era. No, so Babette. In the end, she's French. She's working for a stoic Swedish family, I think it is. They're all very religious, but very sort of Protestant, no joy, gray, right? So her only tie back to France is she gets a lottery ticket bought for her, and she wins 10,000 francs.
Oh.
So she has been the housekeeper and the cook for these people for years. So she spends her entire lottery winnings on this feast. Which is turtle soup, Bellini's Deminoff, which is buckwheat pancakes with caviar and sour cream with veuve clicquot, quail and puff pastry with foie gras and truffle, endive salad, rum sponge cake with figs and candied cherries, cheese and fruit, all the wine to go with it, finishing with coffee and cognac. And the people are so stoic, they don't want to show any joy because that goes sort of against their religion. But she's so thankful for them giving her home, and they're so thankful for her. So restaurants in Melbourne, at one point, I'm sure all over, were replicating the meal.
Yeah, there's been lots of, not backlash, but there's been lots of enthusiasm about Babette's Feast, I think, ever since the movie came out.
Oh, and it's just so beautiful because she was actually a chef, which she never told them, in a restaurant in Paris, which
Oh,
I forgot
wow.
that bit. But to see the love of the food and no, freaked me out seeing the turtles that time, but I would have turtle soup. I'm sorry to anyone.
You've never had it?
No, I've never had turtle soup. I've had mock turtle soup, but it's not turtle soup.
Oh, wow.
I might have to do that, but the turtles are cute. Now, David, what's the next movie here?
Oh, The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover.
That is it.
Found out this is one of my wife's favorite films, and she was filling me in about the film itself.
Yep.
I kind of remember it. I kind of don't remember it again, but
It's very visual. Like you would have loved the.
I think it was visual. I think there was like lots of blues and greens and reds in it, and somebody was getting killed, right?
Yes.
Were they?
Yes. John Paul Gaultier did all the costuming as well. So 80s John Paul Gaultier, there was feathers and big shoulders.
Like a Fellini film.
Yes.
Just amazing.
And they did things like they changed the colors of the costumes for the sets.
That's what it was. That was every scene had different colors. And
yes, so a gangster takes over this restaurant. So he kind of runs off all of the other guests over time because he likes it so much. But he's a pig. He's married to Helen Mirren. She's having an affair with someone. And so it ensues, the trouble ensues. So there is murder, mayhem, and maybe a little bit of cannibalism.
Yes, I think we had a talk on all the movies I remember had some kind of cannibalism in them.
I was worried, David. Actually, I looked at it, I was like...
I studied anti-narrative in narrative study, and this film was about the colors and the costumes at one point because they did imitate life, what they were doing. So the visuals were fantastic in that movie. Oh,
yeah. I'm just trying to think of the director. I can't think of it now. I watched a little bit of it again because I'd seen it so long ago. It's fascinating to see and a really good take on the 80s, like the fashion.
Oh, right.
And it was a take on the Margaret Thatcher's England and, how everything was in excess. So it's almost a little Wall Streety in that.
Oh, with the greed is good kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, this was a Mexican movie. I'm not sure if you might have seen it. And Zaina, God bless her, always made fun of me because I could never remember the title because it's like water for chocolate. But I always say like water for hot chocolate. And she goes, all you think about is hot chocolate.
Now,
but it's like water for chocolate.
I believe this is one of my favorite films as far as food films. If this is one where there's a girl cooking and she'd cook her emotions into the film.
Yes, absolutely.
This actually was the movie that inspired me to cook. Because I always thought, wow, if you could express yourself through food, how amazing is that? Because the writers express themselves through writing, filmmakers express themselves through visual images and sound, but expressing themselves through food was just another level of giving, and I like to give. And I just, that movie inspired me to do cooking for people. It was just, I enjoyed it.
Oh, it's just, and like the magic of it. Yeah, it was beautiful. And I was talking to Brendan about it, and the girls know too. If I'm angry, my food will not be good. Like I can't cook while I'm angry.
My wife and I said we put a little love into the meals. When we make each other coffee in the morning, you can make yourself. We have a coffee machine that makes our coffee. Let's start with that. But if I press the button for her, it's a better coffee for her. And if she presses the button for me, it's a better coffee for me. Because we always try to put a little love in everything we do with cooking. And that's where this film inspired me. And I know there's been other films. I think Chocolat was had an appropriation a little bit of this film.
Yes.
Like a hat tip or a head nod towards
it's the same thing with actually we can talk about both because that is two dance. So we'll go back. We'll skip order because Chocolat was like that. It was bringing out feelings and in the people that were eating her chocolates or
that's where
and the scene, do you remember the scene in Chocolat and like Water for Chocolate where she's having to cook the wedding feast for, I think it's her sister who's marrying the love of her
right
the cook's life. Yeah,
she was sad. It was sad when they're eating the feast.
So everyone's eating this big feast and they're like crying the whole time. I was just like, but my kids, like if I'm mad, when I was doing brownies and things, like if I'm cooking a cake, if you said, Barbara, can you bring a pie or a cake to something? I cannot be mad when I do it or stressed or upset because it will not turn out.
Well, your foods that you cook are just perfect, and
well,
they are always
that's not
well
why you
tasted.
said that. No, but you have to. So I think like you said, it's the love that you put in it, and there is a
There's an element of
difference.
that, and
Absolutely.
it's interesting that we talked about that Willy Wonka movie,
Mm.
and there's magic. Like that was whole thing about Willy Wonka. His magic is chocolate, right? This is also like putting the magic into food,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that theme runs through all these movies that we're talking about,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think it's pretty interesting.
Oh, it is. Now, with chocolat, also, it covers France being a very Catholic country. She's sort of a scarlet woman, hence her robe. Anouk arrives in this town. Anouk is the daughter, and her mother arrive in this town with this wind of change that happens, and they open the chocolate shop during the middle of Lent. So the mayor doesn't like her. The priest doesn't like her. All the upstanding people don't like her, but she makes friends with sort of those that aren't worried about their status so much, or those that need help or love. And it's just, it's beautiful like that. And she gives so much to the town, and then it takes her away again. So it's sort of like this fairy tale involving chocolate.
I remember seeing it, but yes, I agree. It's beautiful. It was just beautiful. It was like I said, it's an appropriation to what
Yes.
I watch one movie and like, oh, I enjoyed this too. I wish I could recall more of it.
There's this great line where this woman's like, my husband, he doesn't love me. We have no passion. He doesn't even talk to me. She goes, here, take these almonds, chocolate covered almonds. She goes, what's that going to do? She goes, just take them. So she takes them home. And then the woman comes back the next day. She goes, I need more of those almonds. She goes, how many? She goes, how many do you have?
I love it. I love it.
So that's it. Now we will move to a movie that Brenda and I actually watched the other night, Big Night. So Stanley Tucci, it's 1996, and it is fantastic. It's two Italian brothers that have come to New York to open a restaurant. So after the war, they've come. And so they have one brother is in the kitchen. He's this mad scientist of food. He doesn't talk a lot. He cooks what he wants to cook. He's trying to introduce risotto. Mm-hmm. And the lady's going, it's just rice. Like, does it come with meatballs? He's like, no, this is just how it comes. She goes, can I get a side of spaghetti?
Oh, wow.
I can. And she goes, like, that'll have meatballs? He goes, no. Well, why doesn't it have meatballs? Sometimes it wants to be alone.
That's a brilliant line.
It is. It's full of it. So he comes back and his brother's like, no. He goes, why does she want that? He goes, maybe she likes starch. I don't know. So they're trying to change the people around them rather than cooking what they want, the Americanized food. So they might have been too early for their time. But they have this big night that everything's riding on. But I won't say any more because you need to see it.
I do need to see it.
But Minnie Driver's in it. Allison Janney from... I can't think, the TV show with President Bartlett, anyway, it'll come back to West Wing, and a few other surprises. Isabella Rossellini. So,
I have seen this film, though.
Yes. So, and good soundtrack too, because I was playing Rosemary Clooney. Mambo Italiano was in it as well. So it's a good movie.
Wow, I can remember going to see many Isabella Rossellini films in this little theater in Beverly. It was called the Beverly Theater on Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles. It's just a little artistic house theater. So I'm pretty sure I saw this movie as well. I mean, everything seems familiar.
Right.
We're talking 1996, though. It's a little distance, right?
Yes.
Because it's 2000.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It's before I had kids. It's a long time ago.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, Blue Velvet, she was good in that too. But we're not talking about Blue Velvet.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Isabella. Now, let's move on to 2002, one of my mom's favorites and mine, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one?
Just the first one. Let's go with the original. I still think people are using Windex for pimples still. That was part of the movie. Just put Windex on it, the dad. But the food, a Greek family, she is a woman marrying or dating at this point a waspy vegetarian. And so the family does not know what to do with him. It was very good. The parents meet.
There's so much chaos in these films.
There is. So everyone's loud. It's a couple of Australians in it as well, playing the family members. So his parents, who are country club people, go to the family dinner. There's a spit in the front yard with a lamb going. She brings a bundt cake. So she walks in, and the mother of the Greek family, it's like, what? Your cake has a hole in it. It's just it's the bunt. It's bunt. It's a
Right.
bunt. It's a bunt. So she ends up sticking flowers in it because she doesn't know what to do with it. The aunt's talking about what she's going to cook the boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going, no, he's vegetarian. You go, oh, vegetarian. He eat no meat. She goes, oh, I make lamb.
That is funny, but I have a story that's similar to that.
Yes.
So you said I have a friend, her name is Anne, and she was Malaysian.
Mhm.
And she's married to my friend Rock. And her mother came in to visit. And she goes, I made these dishes. And the Rock was not vegetarian, but they had mostly vegetarian dishes
Yes.
with pork in them. And the mother goes, what? No meat? I was like, and I didn't realize there was a take from the.
Yes, there you go. No man, that is one of the best. I know it can be a chick flick, but it's still a good movie.
It's like an endless chick flick. It's like the Darcy. What are those with the Darcy?
Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy, Bridget Jones' Diaries, and all the other ones that are like that. What's the original one called?
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice.
Don't mess with Colin Firth.
Oh, there's like 100
Okay.
movies. But they're all. I mean, the Greek. I mean, don't you want to be Greek when you're watching those? Because
Oh
you have
my
so many
God,
parties and
yes.
food and everything else.
Well, I have a bit trivia in the back of my head. Tom Hanks' wife, Rita Wilson, who is Greek, she did like a lot of the financing behind that movie because that's sort of a take on her life as well.
So I lived in Portland, Oregon
Yep.
for a little bit, and we had a Greek friends, the Kantakis family,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to go to like the Greek in Buffalo. We have Greeks as well.
Yep.
But the cultures are a little different between East Coast and West Coast,
Yep.
as well as they are very different here in Australia. The Greeks and Italians are not separated as much, but we went to so many festivals and had wonderful Greek experiences of food because I never really had spanakopita and as much as I did in Portland, or what's their mukasa?
Moussaka.
Moussaka.
Yes, that's
Their lasagna
Yes.
version. It was just mind opening and delicious. I just loved the Greek culture.
And
The
it's
foods
just-
are fantastic.
It's
That
just
Mediterranean touch is just beautiful.
celebratory, and we have a big Greek church in my
Oh, and their
hometown.
pastries are just so.
Oh,
good.
yeah, and then you go to the Greek festival, and they'll go, no, you don't. No, Mrs. Jamelis made those. You don't want those. You want this one over
Now,
here.
as
or
much
whatever.
as we mentioned that these might be a chick film, like the
Yes,
Greek,
the
the
big
My
fat
Big
Greek
Fat
one.
Greek Wedding.
Yep.
When I'm watching it, don't you just like crave Greek food?
Oh,
I just
gosh, yes.
really liked it, and maybe that's part of this conversation we're having as well. Like,
Well, and it's all about coming together about like a big meal and all of that.
I think you put a really nice topic together.
Thank you. It's always my favorite, so it's just hard. Brendan has to say, like, no, do something else. But this one he took, so it's all right. Now, Julie and Julia. Have you watched this?
No,
Okay. I am giving you some homework, David, because it's not Nora Ephron. It was her last movie she directed, but it's not too chicky. As in, if you like Julia Child, it's very good. It parallels two things. So Julia Child, her book, Her Life in France. So she went to France and discovered French food. So you see her journey onto writing her cookbooks. And it goes in parallel with Julie, who works in New York. She is one of the people dealing with the fallout from 9/11, taking people's calls for the city. So she has a very depressing, sad job. And she decides one day she's going to do a blog. All of her friends have done all these amazing things. And so she decides she's going to cook every single one of the cookbook's recipes, Julia Child's cookbook. So she's given herself 1 year. And this is when blogs were new. And this is a true story. She did it. But it's like, a dramedy. So not everything's perfect. So you follow her. You follow her sort of trying to deal with that, trying to get the ingredients, fights in her marriage. You see Julia Child having to move through France, having to fight her way into the Cordon Bleu, and her challenges. And it sort of does a full circle at the end. And it's, if you love Julia Child, it's absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend it. Meryl Streep is a beautiful Julia Child, and Stanley Tucci plays her husband.
Now, we don't have to call them chick films. I'm just a product of the 80s, and I
No, I
understand that.
know.
And I use that moniker because I think it's hilarious. However, we just call them rom-coms.
Yes, rom-coms.
And
but this
that's
isn't
fun.
sort of rom-commy. This is sort of, well, with food it is really.
It is, right?
But you find out Julia and her husband were a little bit racy. It was just quite funny. You see this other side of Julia Child.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, they used to send these Valentine's Day postcards to families because she was actually worked for the Secret Service. So she was there's a lot to Julia. And they would do these postcards, and one of them, they're in the bathtub naked, but they've got hearts over anything that you would see. And that's what they sent to their friends in the 50s, for Happy Valentine's Day for
Now,
us.
Just because she was a little different in age than I was at my age when I was a child, I never really watched Julia Child growing up. However, when you did see her, she had a lot of personality.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You knew who she was, and you knew that she did stuff, but I wasn't into food as well because I was just a young man just doing my thing.
I think she must have come on PBS when after school or after kindergarten or something, because I used to watch her cooking show when I was little. It was like Auntie Julia.
Oh, wow. I remember her more doing they would have talk television in the mornings.
Yes.
And they would have her as a guest.
Absolutely.
And then she'd watch my show and she'd do a little thing there. But she was like, what a big personality she was. So now that you're saying she's in the Secret Service, I'm very interested in seeing this movie.
Oh, I think you will enjoy it. There's a very good book that it came from as well. So
not that I'm interested in Secret Service, just that she has had
well, they were both
colorful life.
Well, yeah, and her husband was a diplomat, so they moved all over. So she was like, to quote her, she was like waspy Southern California, Orange County Republican with very bland food, and moved and then introduced
the world to food.
Yeah.
Or the United States.
Yeah. And so that's very good. Now, this movie we're going to talk about next, 2012. I don't know how I missed it because I love Jennifer Garner. I didn't see this movie, but it's called Butter.
Tell me about it.
It is about butter carving competition. It's yes. So it was going to be fantastic because it's like, the Spinal Tap and all those, sort of like a fake documentary sort of thing.
Did they have a butter lamb in this movie?
Yes, I think so.
Do you know what the butter lamb is?
No, I don't.
So on Easter, one of the traditions, at least for my neighborhood,
right,
which I think it has to do with like deep Catholicism of some kind. During Easter holidays, they take the butter and they press it into lamb shapes.
Right.
And it goes on your dinner table and you have the butter lamb.
I never knew that.
And this is like, so in Buffalo, we have this butter lamb. When I moved to Portland, they had the butter lamb in one of the supermarkets, in one of the Woolworths there.
Yeah.
I'm like, they have butter lamb here. Nobody else knows about this, but like the people.
How did I miss that when I come from like
a
Portuguese and Mexican town? How did I miss a butter lamb?
It melts in California.
Yeah, well, maybe. That could be.
But literally, butter lambs are a thing that we bring up for Easter and my whole life. And then when you move someplace else, they don't have them.
Oh.
It was unusual to see that in the Portland store, but I could not find them in California. I'm like, and you can't send one over the.
No, you might have to learn to carve.
Yeah, well, or press. It's more like they take a 3-dimensional cookie shape or like a chocolate bunny. That's a butter lamb.
And do it
That's
that
why I was
way.
wondering if they'd have it in that movie.
Well, I know I saw a giant lamb. I saw a giant dog. I also saw that Julia Garner and her husband are the top butter artists, and this little school-age girl is going to kick their butts. So there's intrigue, and it's all over butter.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm putting that on my list to watch because the trailer cracked me up. So Chef 2014 is a fantastic movie. It's I never say his name correctly. Jon Favreau.
Right.
So he wrote it. It is about a chef that's unhappy with his where he's cooking because the restaurant owner annoys him. Dustin Hoffman plays the restaurant owner.
Okay.
He's in LA somewhere, so fancy. I'm not sure which suburb. So every time he goes to change something at the restaurant, he gets shot down. The people like what they've been eating for 20 years. We're not doing a new menu.
Right.
So a critic hangs it on him. Like he's never changed his food. It's just old hat. And they make him serve him the old hat stuff when the critic comes back in. He has a big Twitter fight with him, and so it begins. He quits the restaurant, and he's on a journey to get a food truck.
Oh, wow.
So he goes across country with his son and I think his sous chef, and they discover food along the way. So his food truck is going to be a Cuban sandwich truck at the end, but he's got his little boy with him. He has an ex-wife, so that they're friends. So he said, "Look, can I take him with me?" And they do things like they go to the markets together to find the best things. He tries all different foods. He has his little boy at Cafe Du Monde, not Cafe Du Monde, Cafe Du Monde in New Orleans. And he said, I want you to have a beignet right here, right now, because it will never taste like it does where they're made. Like you have to have them here. And so he makes a point of that as he's going across the country. And in that, he finds his love of cooking again.
Oh, wow.
And so on the way back, they end up sort of serving food out of the food truck. And it's just like this beautiful story about food. I won't say where it ends up, but you see him discover his love for his
craft.
Well, yes. And the best part about it is like Jon Favreau went to culinary school to do it. So when you see his hands, they're his hands. He's cooking.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. And Roy Choi, who did like Korean, like fusion food trucks in LA, he kind of started the food truck being a famous sort of revolution down there, moving past like taco trucks and things. He trained him as well. It's like, this is how, and taught him how to cook like his style of food.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, if you're ever in a rut, either in your life, in your cooking, what am I going to do with myself? It's one of those inspirational sort of things because I love seeing people love what they do.
I think that's inspirational. Just when someone's doing what they're supposed to do and you can learn from it or take something away from it, it is inspirational. And you hold that. It's almost like eating. You're eating like their life a little bit or something.
Yeah.
It's weird because you're at least digesting it mentally.
Yeah, you have part of them with you.
Yeah.
And I also like, because Jon Favreau loves it so much that he immerses himself because he wrote it. I'm pretty sure he directed it. I'm not sure who produced it. And then, spending months in culinary school and learning to do it correctly. So it looked as good as it did.
Guy is just such an A-type, right? Like he does everything.
I know.
And he does it well.
Yes, he does.
So, I mean, that's a pretty, good for him.
Yeah. And I'm finding more and more about him. But actually, on our next show, we'll be talking about him a little bit again. Now, the 100-foot journey. Helen Mirren has a Michelin-starred restaurant where she serves prime ministers of France in France. And an Indian family opens up an Indian restaurant across the street. So there's your 100-foot journey. So right across the street, 100 feet away, there's an Indian restaurant opening up. So it's between the father who owns the Indian restaurant and Helen Mirren. They have a few friendly sort of jousts over it. His son is a magnificent chef, and she sort of poaches him and teaches him some French cooking.
Oh, wow.
So it's, again, a blending of, and she's like, there's a line in it where she's teaching him, it looked like a beurre blanc. I don't know what the sauce was. And she's like, and that's perfect. It's a 250-year-old recipe. He goes, well, I've added some spices. She goes, it's been perfect for 250 years. Don't add anything. He goes, well, it's time for a change. So you can see the blending between it. So you can see the old and the new. So I think that, and Helen Mirren is amazing.
I remember seeing a movie with Helen Mirren in India. Was it set in?
No. I think I know the movie you're thinking of, but it's not that one. This one is in France.
Okay, so it's in France. No.
Yes.
Could I have a Michelin star in India? I don't think so.
But you can. You can have a Michelin star in India. But
you could.
Yes. There's some
Aren't all the
interesting.
judges in France?
Oh no. Oh no. Well, actually, there's a couple. Anyway, I will tell you about that next show. I'm going to keep some things to myself. Now, we were talking about this next movie, 2017, which is a different sort of food movie, The Founder.
Yes.
So, do you want to tell us about it?
I've seen the movie. It's the origin story of McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
How was Michael Keaton was in this movie?
Yes.
And as the antagonist, Roy goes and meets the people who are running this really interesting restaurant called McDonald's, serving hamburgers to people. And the people that had that restaurant were super intuitive, inventive. Like they took like Henry Ford's what was that? Henry Ford used to make automobiles on line assembly,
Mhm.
and it's actually a technique, and there's a word for it. I can't figure it out, but they did this with their food industry, and so they made hamburgers and everything that McDonald's has, hamburgers, fries, but they made it efficiently, and they got their flavors through all the meals. It was a restaurant that was doing really well, and then Ray Kroc stole the model, and it showed you how terrible people in business can be. And then it
Yes.
was the movie went on, it just dove deeper into how terribly evil people can be because everything was just exploited.
Absolutely.
You know, and then at the end it was even like the people who made McDonald's suffered terribly and died. You know, it was so depressing.
It was sad.
It's
The
like,
brothers, they couldn't use their own
'cause
name
what a-
again.
yeah, what a good idea it was, and it was a very interesting movie just for all the not wealth of from all the I'm trying to describe terms or how much was in it, how the bounty of McDonald's and food making and putting restaurants together, how
And franchising.
yes, and the franchising and how they it was amazing to see how intertwined all these elements were and how it was exploited and the
Yes.
outcome it came, because it didn't have to go that way.
No.
Everybody could have won, but in the end only one person won,
Well, yes, and he won everything.
and he won everything.
So it ended up being. So I think the crux of it, he owned all the land. Roy Kroc, I think, bought
Yeah, he
all
bought
the
all the land
all the land.
and
So
just rented back to people.
yes,
So they're all making him money.
yes, and that some people go, oh, well, that's like ingenuity, but it was really rough. It was a rough thing to see because it was awful on the McDonald's brothers. Now, before we move on we've got some animations we're going to talk about as well, but I just want to remind our listening audience that this is not everything. These are not all the movies on food. There's different reasons why we picked them. We found a big list as well as things that we liked, but watch the trailers if anything is interesting to you. There's a couple coming up that I cannot stress enough how much I love, and I think everyone should see it, food lovers or not. But so this is for you guys to maybe expand your movie watching or your food loving. So now, on to animations. We're going to 2007, Ratatouille.
Oh, great film.
Tell me about it. I never saw it. I had Brendan take the kids because I had a day by myself that day.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. But what happens is there is a young chef, and I don't think he's doing so well. And I believe it's an Italian restaurant or maybe a French restaurant. In my mind, they're almost the same anyways.
Yes.
And he is trying to work himself through the restaurant as a sous chef. But before there's a sous chef, he's maybe like a food cutter to a sous chef to become a chef there. And there's he has competition or co-workers that are actually sous chefs as well. And he can't seem to get his act together or get his flavors together. And this is a cartoon, so it's also kind of funny. But this one rat is watching him, and the rat can cook. If I remember correctly, the rat actually hides underneath the main character human, gets under his hat and pulls his ear and controls him like a marionette would be controlled. And he gets him to put food together. And of course, this surrounds not the protagonist, but on top of the restaurant guy wanting to promote the person, but he's always, how is he doing this? And there's some kind of altercation there. There's also a food critic that wants to come to this restaurant, or he does come to the restaurant, and it's if they make it, they they win. If they don't, they don't.
Right.
But the food critic is really a critic, and the mouse wants to cook for
Ah.
the guy, and he does. And the critic says, "This is the best meal I ever had," basically. And then he finds out there's a mouse, so he can't say that. And they end up closing the restaurant. And then the end, should I reveal the ending? It's a
Yeah,
20-year-old movie. In the end, there's like a personal restaurant where only the secret clientele are coming and supporting the restaurant, where Ratatouille, the mouse, is cooking. Or maybe the mouse's name is Ratatouille. Maybe he makes a Ratatouille. It's just like, I guess, a goulash of Italian meals. But it was just fun and comedy of the rat controlling the guy. The rat's really doing the cooking, not the chef. He was a puppet to the rat.
Right.
And all the things that could happen with
I love it.
cartoons.
It's a
It was nice.
good Disney one.
It was very good Disney.
And I actually missed the next one too because
And it had everything with that Disney would have. It wasn't just one rat. It was like they got the whole rat community to
And
help
they're all
cook
singing?
at one point. They're all probably singing.
is
and
someone's mother dead? Because usually they kill off the parents in a Disney movie of some
something
sort. Yeah,
happened.
of course.
There's always some kind of thing that they had to overcome on top of. At one point, the rat and the puppet guy,
Mm-hmm.
they argue. They're not getting together. There's always just little hurdles obstacles they had to overcome to get to the ending.
Oh, I like that. Well, I will. I had friends tell me to watch it, so I shall. Now, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. There's a funny family story about this. Ainsley was little. This is 2009. She's 7. She's walking through Southland with her dad and said, "Why don't we go to a movie?" And he went, "Okay." And that never happened to her ever again. You know.
10:30 Saturday morning.
Yep. So they went and saw.
Really?
Can we get popcorn? Sure. Everything. So, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Now, tell me about this too, David, because I don't know this one. Do you know this one? You know this one.
I know this one. I've seen. Well, I have a 10-year-old son right now, so we've seen it in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Clay with a Chance of Meatballs was some scientific guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's the star of the movie, and he invents something, and food. He invents something, and food materializes. But he does it. It's a satellite in the sky at one point, and this whole town is benefiting from him making food and going on to town. And then there's some kind of mayor or the guy who runs the town, and he takes control of this thing, and chaos ensues. And then they have to like stop, the whole world from being taken over by this machine that just makes stuff.
Right. And so it's Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yes.
I remember
I don't know, the food was good, but it was like the machine was going to win because somebody didn't program it properly, or he took advantage, like the full lever, or the button 10 got turned up to 11 by the guy who wanted to run the town,
Right.
and they had to save it. So he had to get up to the meatball machine and turn it off. And then there was a Cloudy with Chance Meatballs 2. Something similar happens, but I think the food comes to life.
Oh.
At one point, so that was a take of the first movie.
Good.
But like with Ainsley, it's what you see with your child. You don't get. You're watching your kid. You're watching the movie. There's some adult humor. There's some.
Yeah, you
fun
hope
humor.
they hope they put enough adult humor in it. There's a few good ones.
There are good movies. I mean, interesting concept.
Well, Ainsley is now at the age where she's seeing movies that she saw when she's little, and she's going, "Oh, I get why you laughed then." She's getting the adult humor in it now, or something for the parents. Now, documentary-wise, we've got a couple of things. Now, one is Super Size Me. Morgan Spurlock, did you watch that?
I have never seen Super Size Me. Of course, I know all about it with McDonald's and stuff like that. But was that the same person? Who's the?
He's also done a series where he does different things for 30 days.
Oh, that's okay. That's
so
yes.
He lived like on minimum wage for 30 days and etc. But what he did is he spent 30 days eating just McDonald's. And if they asked, "Do you want to supersize that?" or he would have to say yes.
Because he's trying to see what the caloric intake could keep you
sustained
and living for.
Yeah. So he went to
days.
the doctor at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then every week he went, and at one point a weekend he had like fatty liver like no one's business, and it was surprising because he's like, "Oh well, I feel it right." So it was what it did to him as a solid 3 meals a day.
And this movie has been around for a long time. It's like 2004, and I've heard this movie's also been debunked. It was because he was trying to press a narrative that the food is really bad for you and it's had fatty liver.
Yep.
But I also heard that people it has been debunked. But the question is, was it debunked by McDonald's and their special scientists, or was it debunked by food people? But it definitely gets people arguing in either directions.
It's always about who's doing the research and who's getting paid to do the
Right.
research.
If only there was a government agency that could just do that without being biased by them. Only somebody's looking out for the people.
I know. Now, but he also had people in it that had spent their whole lives eating like once a day there for 20 years and were fine. So yes, I can see
Right.
where. Now, Kings of Pastry 2009 is about a French competition. Do you know when you see the chefs, the French chefs, they had the red, white, and blue ribbon around there?
Yes.
Right. So that is a
that what
special.
that's for?
Yeah, it's a special order.
Oh, wow.
The government presents you. So this competition, there are people that practice for a year for it and everything. So they have to do different types of pastry. And the final thing is a huge sugar sculpture.
Wow.
Right. Everything rides on this. So the pressure of it, you see people go back to their hometown to learn how to like cook again. And it's just, I highly recommend it. Have you seen Nailed It?
I have not.
All right. If you see it, one of the judges is in that movie.
Oh, wow.
The French judge. Now, this is the movie. This next one called Spinning Plates 2013. I recommend everyone, if you get a chance, watch this movie, this documentary. It follows 3 restaurants. So one is Alina, one which is voted best restaurant in the world at one point in Chicago. One is Brightbox, which is good old-fashioned Iowa cafe restaurant where it's just a small town. They do pies, but they might do 250 people on the weekends, like covers.
Wow.
Right? So if someone doesn't show up, the police go check if they're okay. Like everyone goes to Brightbox. And La Cocina de Gabi, which is a little Mexican restaurant on its knees. This one little lady, her husband adores her, and her cooking is life, right? So they could lose their house. They could, trying to get the restaurant working. So the 3 extremes of restauranting or restaurateuring, they all tie together toward the end, as in you find different reasons why they all connect, but one person has cancer, one place burns down, one financial, but they kind of come through it. It is inspirational. It is.
I love when they take those threads and run the narratives through and bring
and
you
I
someplace.
couldn't stop watching it. And you also you fall in love with the people in it. You need to know more because it's a human story, but tied around food, which is something that I adore. So
that sounds like a great recommendation.
I highly recommend that. And now when we're talking, if there's only those people that looked after our health, Fed Up. It's about the food industry. It has a little bit about factory farming, has a little bit about who's doing the research for what. The gentleman that does it has been a food journalist for years. So it's quite interesting. And he's just like, look, eat everything, mostly plants, but eat mostly plants. Don't eat a lot of everything. But just how it just goes through all those things that have kind of made us maybe a little bit experimental with fast food, with corn syrup, with all these sort of things, and what is actually going on. The difference between a factory farmer and a old-fashioned farmer where, the animal has one bad day, that you know that the animal's been taken care of and loved. So it's quite interesting seeing it. I will leave it up to people to check what they want to check in further about, but it's enough to open your eyes a little bit to maybe ask questions about where your groceries come from.
And all from the Supersize Me, which we talked about before, the Morgan Spurlock's film.
Yeah.
To this Fed Up, there's been a whole narrative and there's been a whole movement of people with dietary concerns based, I think, on that Supersize Me film. That's why it was so prevalent. So you're talking about this Fed Up, what is corn syrup doing to me? There's a whole bunch of, I would say over the last 20 years, people are really trying to figure out what the liver's function is in dieting and how you can have a better life and live longer and healthier and what you can eat. And when you mentioned just eat vegetables,
like eat everything,
but just more of this stuff.
Yeah, that's
I think there's so much. I think we're in a good part of learning probably inspired from these films
That's
that came on the
it.
back.
And anything that's a documentary, as we've said before, you've got to keep your eyes open because you're seeing one side of it, and so you should ask more questions, and you should then finish it and then dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I recommend that. There's a great old fashioned farmer in there. He's got the bib overalls and the straw hat, and I adore him. Now we have to do wine because what goes with food? Wine, mostly for me.
Oh.
Two documentaries. One is Sour Grapes, 2016. If you like a bit of espionage or a little bit of intrigue, I recommend this movie. It's about a ripoff in the wine industry. Someone sort of, how the rich and powerful seem to be gullible sometimes. These people kind of get in.
Of course. They want something new and different.
And here you go. So I won't give too much away because it's quite interesting, but that's one part of the wine industry. And the other documentary is called Somme from 2012. This is about these poor people they're taking the test to be sommeliers, and they have to know, they blind taste through this whole thing. It kind of, girlfriends, you don't see your girlfriend for months. You are studying, you're going through cards, you are tasting, and the test is almost, it was the month of August in 1999, the left side of this valley, and the exact grape, everything. It is so specific, and they need to be able to taste and discern what that is.
It's such a high privilege being a sommelier.
Mm.
I worked my way through college in a restaurant.
Right.
It was a Marriott in Buffalo, 5-star restaurant, and we would have to do wine tastings just because wine distributors would come in with their best people and say, we want you to sell these wines, but they would be like high-end wines, and they would take you through this. You could taste, like, this is the walnut from these walnut barrels, so this is how you can remember this. These are the fragrances from these flowers that you could taste in this, and you'd sample these all and you learn them. But to be a sommelier and have all that knowledge, how amazing and difficult would that be? So this movie really interests me.
And it takes them, I think it's the whole year. You see these group of people and a few other people go through the journey and go through the test, and you see also how they handle the pressure of it.
I wonder if there's a movie like that for coffee people.
There has to be.
What
if not, here's an idea.
What would a coffee sommelier be called? Is there one? Is there a word for that?
I don't know. Well, we should find out. We'll look at the break.
I don't mean to take
bastard or something.
Brendan Francis. Right. So now, that we've made it through all of these movies. Thank you, David. I can't wait to go hit a few of these this week.
I'm watching 3 of them that you've recommended. I want to see the Julia Child one. I want to see the spinning plates you just mentioned, and I circled another one that we were talking about, which was...
Is maybe the Somme? Or is it back when?
I think I'll go back and see who's the killing great chefs in Europe. Because I'm like, I remember it, but I don't remember it.
Yes.
And the 2 wine ones.
And the 2 wine ones.
Wine ones. I'm more interested in the sommelier than the first one, but...
No, the first one...
Sour grapes is nice.
No, Sour Grapes is well worth it. Like, I couldn't give too much away without giving too much away. But
it would not affect my privilege of watching the movie.
It's a vast audience that we cut one away.
That's right. It's all the people like Megan that listen and Neil. We don't want to turn them off. Now, we're going to take another well-earned break. Dave needs a coffee.
I always need coffee.
And we'll be back in a minute.
Just don't make me choose.
And we're back.
Thank you very much, Dave. Now, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. Now, the code for the month of May is Barbara, because it's my birthday month and I'm all about that. So it is Barbara, Barbara, not like Ms. Streisand. On the USA Foods website, if you click on the listener discount logo, you'll find some of the discounts associated with the show. The store is open 7 days a week. Check site for hours. You can subscribe. Actually, it'd be great. Subscribe to the podcast. Then it just shows up every week for you. And if you want to share or have a chat with us, you can contact us at podcast@usafoods.com.au. Now, I have got My personal product profile. Now, David, I don't know if you got in on all the stuff that happened last year where we had Aunt Jemima, who is renamed now to the original name,
Oh, wow.
which is the Pearl Milling Company. So if you're looking for Aunt Jemima Complete, everyone, that is our best-selling pancake mix. Everyone loves it, but people won't find it necessarily under Aunt Jemima. It is now Pearl Milling. And so the 3 syrups are back as well. There's a little bit of controversy with some people. There's people that agree with it and don't agree with it. I think it's great to go back to the original. And the packaging's the same. So if you see it on the shelf, you can still recognize the red and yellow box. And pancakes, it's great for waffles. It's great for pancakes. And you can't screw it up. Doesn't matter.
That's what they don't have in Australia is a good pancake mix in a box. I've had to come up with my own pancake waffle recipe.
Right.
But how easy was it growing up? You just get the Aunt Jemima or the Pearl Milling mix, and you make it, and it's the same every time and delicious.
Perfectly brand. You don't have to throw that first one away usually unless you get the grill.
Sometimes on my pancakes can be pancakes. Sometimes they are waffles. Sometimes they're pretzels, which is the bad part of that. And then sometimes they're crepes. So it's like if I had a box.
Well, you know what, David? I will send you home with that box.
Yes, winner.
winner.
Thank you.
So I just want people to be aware of it because it's so popular. And then with the whole COVID supply chain, we just didn't have it for ages. So it's back now so everyone can enjoy it again. We have our topic, knowledge nuggets. Now, I know Brendan talked to you, David, about a knowledge nugget. This is something, and you were great. You're one of the people I used when we were talking about starting this, about when you were making your sauce that day at Kate's house and you put like a carrot in because it took some of the bitterness.
Right. If you make spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, that's right. And I was like, that's what a knowledge nugget is. It's one of those little bits that your friend or your mom or someone would say, hey, when you're doing this, it's easier, or do it this way or whatever. So I know he came up to you with a knowledge nugget, and it's rice. So what about rice is in your...
So many people don't know how to cook rice. It's the simplest thing. It's one of the only recipes you can get off the bag that works.
That's right. Anna, are you listening? It's a private joke. Yep.
Okay. So some people, if you have like an Italian background or do pasta cooking, they think rice is pasta. And it's not. It basically, you take a cup or it could be anything. You could have a shoe.
Shoey of rice, yes.
Fill whatever. Let's just use a cup as an example. Yep. So it's like 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water. You bring it to a boil, and then you turn it down to simmer. 12 minutes later, the rice is cooked.
Beautiful.
Of course, it's covered.
Yeah, cover it.
After you boil it, simmer it, cover it. 12 minutes later, it's done. Works every single time. There's no rice disaster. This works for the sushi rice. This works for the... what are the long rices they're called?
Like the basmati or the jasmine.
Yeah, basmati, jasmine. But so many people ruin rice meals, and it's the easiest thing to cook. Now, of course, you can also do the prep for rice. You don't have to. I mean, that might be sacrilege if you're from a different culture where they first rinse the rice to get the starch off.
Yep.
But at the end, that 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water for those minutes still works, even if you've cleaned the rice.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you. And it is. It's one of those things, write it in the back of your cookbook or something that you always have it if you can't remember it. But it's, like you said, it's on the bag.
It's on the bag. It works.
Now, mine is so poaching chicken.
Ooh.
Right? So when you shredding chicken more. So if you poached chicken.
Oh, not like go to the farmers and at night and sneak out and grab the chicken. Not that kind of poaching.
No, not wild game hunting. So you've cooked some chicken, David. Or you've got a rotisserie chicken and you've ripped the meat off of it. I know you guys have, we're part of the Thermomix cult. You can easily do it in that on backwards.
Oh, wow.
For hit it quickly, just
I've never
on and
used
off.
a Thermomix. I love it.
Okay.
My wife uses it all the time. It's enabled her to do many things. She loves it.
I will talk to Susan about that because it is great. But the other thing you can do, if you had beaters, just mixers, or you have a KitchenAid and you have that paddle, you can just run that through the chicken in the bowl just briefly, and it breaks it all up and makes it shredded. So you're not sitting there with a fork trying to shred it with 2 forks. That takes forever, and then you're picking it off the tines. It's a pain.
Could I please just share one more
Oh,
nugget
please.
now that I'm thinking
Yep,
about
do
it?
it.
Because I just discovered this recently, and I've never been great at breakfast. My father was amazing, but I just figured out the secret to making omelets.
Yes.
So you break your eggs in a bowl, okay, before you put anything, because you just have to have eggs. So your eggs are in the bowl. You can eat, if you don't want the yolks, you don't have to have them or whatever if you're making a plain omelet. But the secret is adding some air. So if you whisk your omelet and
Right.
put air in it on the pan, it comes out perfect every time.
Oh, wow.
So I've never done this until I did it. I accidentally discovered it. And I'm like, oh my God, I can make the perfect omelet every time. It's amazing. It was
Well,
the difference in adding the air added enough thickness on the bottom where it's not being burnt by the pan, and it's consistent every time.
oh, that's fantastic. Well, because a lot of chefs, when they hire chefs, that's what they have them cook.
Oh, really?
Is an omelet. Because if you can't cook an omelet,
Well, until about a
there's
couple months
trouble.
ago, I've been failed the whole time. And now without trying.
So now, I don't think you've met. I need you in the shop one day because you need to meet Sean, who's our warehouse manager, who has some super specials for us. So these things are going to be on sale for a week from the show. It will be, so there's a few here. It's going to be from the 25th of May to Tuesday, the 31st of May. We have got Raisinets. These are theater boxes for movies, down to $2.49. Bottle caps for $1.80. The lemon heads for $3.50. Swedish Fish Mini Tropical for $2.50, box of Nerds for $2.50, and a little bag of Razzles. Down, it's a candy and then it's gum. I love that one. $2, and now and later. That's what I used to buy at the store after the dentist.
Oh, yeah.
These things, down to $2. So that's the 2.44 ounce, and those are super specials. Now. We've also, David, this is you might feel like you're in the passenger seat here. Sorry about that.
I'm just happy to be here.
Happy to have you. We've got Goss. There's lamb bacon happening, right? There's all sorts of people that don't want to eat or can't eat pork for different reasons, right? So there's a Central Victorian sheep farmer, Tony Barton, developed the idea of making bacon from lamb in 2016 to value add each lamb cut from her property. So it's been a hit. You use the lamb flank, like the belly, the same part of the animal. And the product appeals to Islamic consumers. It's great, goes well in the Middle East. She's now mastered the process of salting, smoking, and curing the cuts. She follows artisan methods using traditional salt cure and red gum wood chip smoke. Her sheep are also 100% grass-fed and free-range, which adds to the rich flavor of the meat. She's got a lot of demand for her meat at the moment. Lamb bacon has a similar appearance to the regular streaky bacon and can be used in replacement for pork-based small goods or simply add a tasty twist to recipes. It also finishes with a lovely crispy crunch, which is what we want as Americans with bacon. Lamb bacon is just one of the remarkable Australian food producers you can find listed on a great website, Eativity, so EATIVITY, news.com. And in the States, you can get beef bacon, lamb bacon, turkey bacon. And now we're just starting to get the alternatives here, which is, I think it's pretty exciting myself.
I think it's one of the flavors that Australia is missing.
Yes, because lamb is Australian. Like, it's just the quintessential Australian meat.
There are many proponents of bacon here in Australia. I'm like, you poor guys don't know what you're missing out on. Because the United States, we absolutely do bacon pretty well, except for one thing. We cut it razor thin, and you don't get a lot of quantity with it.
Yeah.
So you're always wanting. Maybe that's the secret of American
Could
bacon.
be.
But it's all smoked thing, right? But then you go to Canada, where they're smart enough and they said, hey, we're going to put rashers and smoke them. And like, wow, you Canadians really did that really well. I'm like, how did it not get here?
Then the maple.
Oh, the maples. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maples very...
I love it. So that is our news. Now, next week, we're going to be talking about food on TV or in TV or around TV or whatever. Dave will be back with us, which I'm very excited about. Hopefully filled with lots of coffee and snacks. And we didn't get a chance to do some movie scenes. We're going to throw some of those in there as well. A couple of my favorite, Jack Nicholson's in one of them. And our sign-off quote today is from Finding Nemo. Do you want to read it, Dave?
Oh, I'd love to read it. That sounds
Okay.
Good. Fish are friends, not food. Brucey,
the
shark.
shark.
Oh, so I loved his. He was torn, conflicted all the time.
Well, those things, food choices can be conflicting. Thank you, David, and I will see you again very soon.
Absolute pleasure.
Have a great week, everybody. See you. Bye-bye.